Hey guys, welcome back to the Laid Back Homestead. I'm Krystle, and today we are in the kitchen and we are going to be using our preserved blueberries. I am going to be making a blueberry cobbler. I've made blueberry dump cobblers before. This one is a little bit more involved, but not by much. Seems simple enough using from scratch ingredients. So I'm really excited about that. But also, I'm going to be making a blueberry hot sauce. I know that may sound weird, but I have an abundance of blueberries. I have an abundance of hot peppers put up. And I was watching a Food Network competition show and somebody came up with this idea. And the moment I heard it, I was like, okay, now I'm intrigued. Let's see what this tastes like. So yeah, I'm really excited. As always, I will link the two recipes down below so you can follow them exactly if that's what you are choosing to do. I will probably follow the cobbler recipe exactly, but when it comes to the hot sauce recipes, I am going to make some adjustments. The first recipe we're going to make is the blueberry hot sauce because that's going to take the longest time to actually cool off before I can get it back into the freezer. And for this, you're going to need blueberries. As you can tell, mine were frozen and defrosted, so I will be omitting the water that this recipe called for. You will need, hot peppers. The original recipe calls for habaneros. That's not what I have. I have some sugar rush peach and maybe some dadles in here. Not too worried about that. Hot is hot. That'll be fine. A little bit of garlic, apple cider vinegar, honey, salt. And this recipe did call for a small chopped onion and the juice of a lime. And then in the back, I have my newly fixed pre-composter, thanks to my husband. So let's get this going. Easily enough, the first steps is just to combine your apple cider vinegar, your water, and your honey in here and mix to combine. Again, I am omitting the water, but I am going to go ahead and add in a 1/4 cup of the apple cider vinegar, and it calls for 1 tablespoon of honey. Now I am going to eyeball that, about that amount. Made enough hot sauce in my day to know kind of what my family prefers. I also know that the blueberries are going to be pretty sweet as we had been eating a lot of them fresh. So this is the first step. So I'm just going to stir in my honey to combine it. I don't need it to be, completely dissolved. And now we're going to add the rest of the ingredients. So I'm going in with my peppers, my blueberries, some onion, and the last thing I'm going to add in here, well, I say the last thing, is some garlic, but I also need to add in the salt. So let me grab the salt, and I'm going to start it up and let it simmer. So I have this over medium heat. We're going to bring it up to a simmer, and then I'll turn it down, let it simmer 15 to 20 minutes. The original recipe says to then take it and put it in a blender after it's cooled slightly. I'm probably just going to immersion blender it. It's a lot easier to clean than pulling out my whole big blender. So that's what I'll do. I didn't add the water in, as you saw that the recipe called for, because my blueberries were very liquidy. But I will monitor the consistency of this, and if it looks like it's too thick, I will go ahead and add water in. So we have our hot sauce going, simmering on the stove right now. I figured my oven preheated already to 350. Let's just jump into this cobbler, get everything done. It's a busy weekday, and I'm just trying to get things accomplished. So we're gonna get started. The more I'm looking at this cobbler recipe, the more excited I am. I mean, it's like 4 ingredients, 5 ingredients max. And that's exciting. Normally when I do the dump cake recipes or the dump cobbler recipes, it makes a 9 by 13, which is just a little bit large if I'm not going to a family gathering. So I'm also excited because this recipe calls for an 8 by 8 pan. And an 8 by 8 is definitely something that my family will eat in a timely manner. So I'm gonna flip you around and show you the ingredients. Okay, so we have our ingredients for our lovely cobbler this evening. You will need a cup of self-rising flour, a cup of sugar, a cup of milk, 1 stick of butter, a cup to a cup and a half of blueberries, but I'm gonna just use whatever was in the bag. I didn't measure it, so mine may be extra blueberry-y. Yeah, that's a word. So I have mine straining right now because, again, I'm using frozen. I think the original recipe called for fresh. So I'm hoping that doesn't cause any problems. We'll see. It's an experiment. Either way, I'm sure it's going to taste delicious. So the first step is to melt your butter. So if you have a microwavable safe bowl, that would be ideal. That's what I'm using here. So I'll be back as soon as that's melted. Alrighty, I am back with the melted butter. It took about a minute total. I did 30-second increments in my microwave. And to this, we're gonna add 1 cup of flour. Actually, you know what? So I don't cross-contaminate, I'm gonna do my sugar first. 1 cup of sugar. 1 cup of flour. Ooh. And 1 cup of milk. That is one thing with the self-rising flour. It's super fine and makes a mess, but that's okay. And now we're just gonna stir this. This is the cobbler batter. We're gonna stir this until it's smooth. I say stir, I meant whisk. Well, this mixed together very quickly. I'm really glad I didn't pull out my stand mixer. I almost did because I've never made a cobbler batter before. So now I know not to be intimidated by that. And now that we've got that done, I'm gonna use an 8x8 like she did in the original recipe. You're gonna pour your batter in. This, it called to grease with butter. I really couldn't be bothered to do that, so I just sprayed it. Hopefully that'll be okay. I think it'll be fine. Now this is where it says to sprinkle your berries. And I have, hold on. And I have over here my berries. And as you can see, I have a rogue blackberry that made it into this batch. I think that's the only blackberry we got, which, you know, is sad in and of itself. I'm going to try not to make too much of a mess. I'm going to use all of these. It may be more than what's necessary, but that's okay. I'm trying not to make a complete mess of this. We will see. I know when you make blueberry muffins, you normally, if you don't want all your fruit to fall to the bottom, you dredge your berries with flour. I didn't read where it said to do that in here. I know, it's a lot of blueberries, you guys. It's a lot. More berry than cobbler. Oh well. Well, I almost forgot. The recipe does call for you to sprinkle a little bit of coarse sugar on top. I don't have that, so I'm using fine sugar, and I just did a pinch, and hopefully that will be okay. So now we just put it into our preheated oven for preheated to 350 degrees for 50 to 55 minutes. Our cobbler is in the oven, and this has been simmering away now, and my house smells so fruity and spicy. I don't know if you have a lot of experience cutting into a hot pepper, but you can just smell the fruitiness and the spiciness that comes off of them. And now that I've had a little bit of time to look in here, I definitely have a couple of dragon toe peppers and what looks to me to be dadles. There may actually be a few habanadas in here. It's hard to really tell, but I definitely recognize the dragon's toe and some dadles in here. And it is very, very strong. So I think I'm actually going to leave the lid off. I'm going to turn off my heat and let it cool, and then we'll check the consistency. I'll blend it and we'll see if it's too thin. I will let it cook down. So right now, turn the heat off, let it rest. So this has cooled off enough for me to be able to jujube it. That's what I call anything I have to immersion blend. I say I gotta jujube it. So That's what we're gonna do. And this will give me a better idea of what my texture is. So I got it to the consistency that I like. The last step is just to go ahead and work in some lime juice. So I'm gonna do the juice of a pretty small lime. And then I will give this a taste test to make sure it's sweet enough. Just gonna go ahead and stir that in. See what that's like. Okay, I have just a little bit. I'm gonna taste test because it does smell really spicy. It is really hot. Of course, you can control that by the peppers that you use. But I think it needs a little bit more sweetness. And because I didn't really quite measure out the honey, I'm gonna add some more honey and get it to where I like it. All in all though, it's pretty good. I mean, it is very spicy, but I kind of knew that going in. It's not my first hot sauce that I've made. I like the blueberry in it. I wasn't really sure, full disclosure, I wasn't sure how I was gonna feel about this, but I like it. I like the blueberry, but I think it needs just a little bit more sweetness to kind of enhance that blueberry flavor. So I added in another tablespoon of honey, and I think it's perfect now. So the last step for this, you have to strain it into a container that you're gonna store it in. You're gonna let it sit in the refrigerator for 3 days, it says in the recipe, before using it. And so what I'll do, I will put it into the refrigerator for 3 days, let it sit, and then I'm gonna eventually separate it out and store it in the freezer long-term in smaller portions. So let's go ahead and get this strained. So at this point, I'm gonna just strain it over a bowl. It'll make my life easier, and then I will pour it into the storage container I'm gonna use for the fridge. And I will let this sit here for quite a while. Throughout the rest of the day, I'll come around and just kind of smash it down with my spatula, kind of like this, just moving it around, letting the liquid all come out. And yeah, that's all you really have to do at this point is let it work its way out. And it is really spicy. So the other thing you can do with your pulp, once you've extracted all the, sauce out of it that you want, you can dehydrate it and make like a chili powder blend. All right, I'm just gonna pour off my hot sauce. Ooh. Hard to do this with one hand. All right, guys, my timer dinged. And as you can see, we have a nice looking blueberry cobbler. I'm actually quite surprised. It looks like the majority of my blueberries stayed on top and didn't sink to the bottom as I was expecting, kind of like with a blueberry muffin recipe. So that's interesting. But either way, I'm gonna let this cool for a second and then we'll give it a little bit of a taste test. All right, guys, I just went and took a little bite off of the corner of the cobbler. Smells really good. Still steaming, so may regret this decision. It's really good. Not too sweet. If you're not into super sweet desserts, definitely give this one a try. Yeah. There is our finished products. We have our blueberry hot sauce, which will now go into the fridge for 3 days, and our blueberry cobbler. Now you may be thinking, oh, that doesn't look like a lot of hot sauce, but that is several servings of anything that's spicy. So that is plenty. And I just wanted to say, if blueberry hot sauce is not your jam, well, you could always make blueberry jam, but I think blueberry pepper jelly would be really good too. This almost has a nod to blueberry pepper jelly in my opinion. Maybe it's just because of the fruits and peppers that I used in the combination. I don't know, but I'm looking forward to using this in a couple of days. And yeah, so all in all, today's recipes went by really quickly. I think I was in the kitchen less than an hour of prep time. It did take an hour, well, 50 minutes or just shy of 50 minutes for the cobbler to cook, but this was easy enough to get done. For a long time, I suffered with like analysis paralysis, where I would convince myself that things would take too long to do and then I wouldn't get them done. And so now, you know, the year 2025, I'm trying to really push myself and just get as much accomplished as possible. So thank you all for hanging out with me today. If you have any blueberry recipes you'd like to share, please comment them down below. And until next time, stay blessed.